Yeehaw! Larkin Rose here. This is the last video I'm planning on doing about the HBO series. We'll see if that ends up being true or not. But this goes way beyond just the HBO series, The Anarchists. But it goes way beyond that. It's a more global thing. Normal people out in the world, normal people are statists, because that's what most of the world still believes in. They have a hard time. They already have a hard time distinguishing between ideas and personalities. And they will often judge an idea not by the merits of the idea itself, but by who's delivering it. One example you could use is if somebody identifies Christianity as the slimy, really dang rich TV evangelist crook, and they think that represents Christianity, of course they're going to think, well, that's horrible and I hate that. Somebody else may think that Christianity is represented by their neighbor who's like all nice and generous and not preachy, and he's always willing to give and willing to listen. And he works hard and takes care of his family and all that stuff. So they might get the impression that that's Christianity. Now, obviously, I'm not here to talk about Christianity. That's just an example of how people decide the merits of a message based on who's delivering the message. It's unfortunate. It's not that logical. It doesn't really make any sense because a message should stand on its own and either survive or fail on its own merits. But that's not how people think. With that in mind, the concept of anarchism or voluntarism has its biggest enemies, its biggest obstacles to it getting out is often anarchists, or people who call themselves that. And some of them actually are that. And when the impression goes out to the rest of the world that anarchism means not just we don't want a ruling class, but these people over there doing things that the world is like, well, I don't want to be them, it's setting a bad example. Now, the world shouldn't be like that. People should be able to understand principles and logic enough to say, even if this person does stupid stuff and I don't like their personality and whatever, if they say 2 plus 2 is 4, 2 plus 2 is still 4. Like, the truth is still the truth, regardless of who says it. And figuring out whether it's the truth has nothing to do with assessing the messenger and whether you personally like them. That's how it should be, but people aren't that rational, so that isn't how it is. When I look at all the people complaining about the HBO series, all the anarchists saying, oh, it's a hit piece, everything that made the anarchists look bad came out of the mouths of anarchists. All of it. The people who made the series were telling the story. And yeah, they focused on the stuff that was drama going on and stuff because that's what filmmakers do. And, you know, if it was up to me, it wouldn't have been that because it's not my job to be a filmmaker and tell a story about an event. Like, my job, if you want to call it that, is to try to spread the ideas of self-ownership and non-aggression and all that stuff. That's what I focus on. So if I made a thing, it wouldn't be at all like that, and there is no chance in hell that it would ever have appeared on HBO, because never in a million years would the thing I would have made be something they would air, because they want viewers. HBO is showing things that they think will get them viewers, and that has to be drama and stuff that gets you hooked and personalities and all that stuff, and that's what filmmakers do. And Kim and Todd, who we know, did an awesome job of telling a story. And it's a story that's pissed me off for about 26 years. I'm not talking about Anarchapulco in particular now. I'm talking about the uphill battle of trying to convey and explain the concepts of something that's already foreign to most people, the idea of a stateless society, when most of the people who claim to represent that belief system and that philosophy are doing an amazingly bad job of demonstrating what self-ownership and responsibility and like being considerate actually means. And the sad thing is, I was in the process of writing this video and planning it, and then I went to a different event, an anarchist event, and it gave just a shining, depressing example of exactly what I was already going to make this video about. I'm not going to mention where it was, and I'm not going to mention names because I don't care about the personal drama, but it's a thing that happens out in nature where a bunch of people camp, and it pisses me off to even talk about it. Some genius decided that, well, I'm sort of in charge of organizing it. You don't have to organize anything. It's dirt in the woods. People go there and camp and hang out with other people. And so the person who decided they were in charge of organizing it gave permission for someone to come in and crank, in my opinion, crappy music. But the quality of the music is irrelevant. Crank music so loud that you could hear it 3 or 4 miles away. So they're imposing that on everybody in the camp. And so Amanda and I are there, and we're thinking, okay, well, sometimes people party and they're loud and it's annoying and we don't really like it, but whatever, it's kind of to be expected. Although, holy crap, is that loud? It's louder than it ever was before. But maybe they'll stop at like midnight or 1 or 2. They didn't. Or 3 or 4 or 5. They didn't. All night, literally doing exactly what the federal government did to the Branch Davidians, torturing them, torturing little children with ridiculously loud noise that they couldn't get away from, causing sleep deprivation in a bunch of people. That's an act of aggression. That is aggression. And if you're to be a voluntarist, and especially to organize an event that didn't need organizing, the one thing you have to do to be a voluntarist is don't aggress. And instead it was this aggression inflicted on hundreds of people who didn't want that, didn't agree to that, didn't expect that. And when people pointed it out, several of us did, I pointed it out rather loudly at like 4 a.m. the next morning, like, what the hell is wrong with you people? Do you not understand consideration for other human beings? Their response was to turn it up and be obnoxious jackasses. And I thought to myself for the millionth time, if you want humanity to adopt anarchism, maybe the people who claim to be anarchists shouldn't act like complete assholes and complete idiots and self-centered, oblivious morons. Maybe don't do that if you want other people to consider these ideas. So back to the HBO thing. That wasn't as bad, but there was still drama that didn't need to be drama. There was stuff going on that has nothing to do with anarchism. Like, the ideas are the ideas. And there are so many side things. You can be an anarchist and understand self-ownership and non-aggression and still be in a huge array of ideas and personalities and preferences and lifestyles and still be an anarchist. And that's perfectly fine. That's the beauty of it. It allows us all to peacefully coexist, even if we have almost nothing in common, which is awesome. The problem is, if you take your own particular brand of preferences and what you like to do, and we're going to snort coke and screw around and party all night, and make it look like that equals anarchism, you're making a whole bunch of the world go, ew, well, those people aren't me. I don't want that. Well, guess what? I don't want that either, but I'm an anarchist. And I understand that that's unrelated to the actual concepts of anarchism. And there are so many ways to mix up very simple principles with a bunch of, well, if you're an anarchist, then you believe in astrology and healing crystals and a bunch of hippie stuff, like, which you can believe in, but that has nothing to do with anarchism. Or you can be, crypto bros making bazillions of dollars, and the concept of cryptos can have something to do with anarchism because it's a way to undermine the state. But if that's your focus, that's your focus. That isn't being an anarchist. It's not being an anarchist. But when you give the impression that here's the personality type that anarchists are, and a lot of the world looks and goes, ugh, well, that's not me, they're going to think, therefore, I'm not an anarchist, because that represents anarchism. And I know a bunch of people who I would call anarchists who don't want to call themselves anarchists precisely because the label has all this baggage not only of what statists make people think of as chaos and mayhem and Molotov cocktails, but because of what anarchists make it look like. And for 26 stinking years now, I've been trying to explain these principles in every way I can think of, in articles and talks and books and everything under the sun. And the whole time, well, at the beginning there was hardly anybody else I knew, but by the time there were other anarchists, some of them were already making me cringe. I'm going, don't make people associate that with anarchism, because it's not. It's just you. That's just you being you. And it includes the, drama that didn't need to happen. It includes people putting up with really unstable, dangerous people, like Paul in the HBO series, which I knew him a very little bit. But instead of just disassociating, that was kept around. That energy was kept around. And now people can look at it and go, wow, those anarchists are really messed up. Well, that one was. And the people who let him hang around, weren't nearly as messed up as Paul, but they were making crappy choices, really crappy choices. And so a lot of the drama and the crappy choices and the problems and all the things that lead to the stuff that makes us look bad, that was anarchists doing that. And it isn't because they're anarchists, it's because they're people, and people do stupid shit. And it's always been frustrating to me how hard it is to have the actual message and ideas just by themselves. That's why I just write books. So here's the message by itself. Like my book, The Most Dangerous Superstition. You can be a very conservative Christian with traditional values and read it and go, oh yeah, government is kind of inherently bogus and shouldn't exist. You can also be a free love hippie who, gets high every day and read it and say, oh yeah, this explains why government is inherently illegitimate. You can be 80 zillion different personalities and lifestyles. You can be black, white, brown, blue. You can be male or female and rich and poor and educated, uneducated, whatever. The whole spectrum of possibilities, and all you have to understand to be able to peacefully coexist with other people is you don't commit aggression, including by way of so-called government. And that's it. And that's the entire principle. That's the concept. It's really damn simple. And when I watch that message being muddied by anarchists more than it's muddied by statists, that's really freaking frustrating. And that's been years and years and years going on. So now I'm going to say things that are going to offend a bunch of anarchists, and I don't stinking care because they're true. In a stateless society, a lot of the statists I know, I would rather be around them in a statist society than a lot of the anarchists I know. Because a lot of those statists that I know, they have this stupid belief that's destructive, it's authoritarian, they were taught to believe it, they haven't questioned it, they're capable of escaping that belief. But aside from that, who they are personally is decent, considerate, caring people. Like they work hard and they love their family and take care of them and they're nice to their neighbors and they help people out when they need help and all the things that make somebody a good person, they have. Now on top of that, they have a very destructive, crappy belief system that I want them to be free of. And that's what Candles in the Dark is about. It's not about we're going to talk you into something. It's about helping somebody realize that deep down inside their own conscience and their own judgment and morality goes against authoritarianism. And if you could bring them to see that, yeah, I really should choose my conscience over the dictates of any government, then you can help free them from that and release the person they already are, the good person they already are. And I remember going out, this is a bit of a tangent, but you'll understand why. I remember going out west. My dad was a teacher, and we used to go out west when I was a little kid and drive across the whole country in our little VW van with no air conditioning and camp all over the place. And I thought it was so cool. We'd go to a campground, middle of nowhere. We'd never been there. We pull in, and it's just immediately like a family. Now, I don't know how much it's like that anymore. I think to some extent it is, but maybe not as much. Everyone's like, hey, hi, how you doing? We're just hanging out and, you need to share stuff and blah, blah, blah. And The event I was just at that I was talking about, the anarchist event, I would say at least 80-90% of the people are that. They're nice and they're cheerful and they'll help you out and have a chat, or they'll leave you alone or whatever. But a higher percentage of anarchists at that event were inconsiderate, obnoxious jackasses than the statists at random campgrounds that I would go to across the entire country. Just random people, because most people are trying to be nice and considerate. And when you have people who claim to be anarchists who don't even have the consideration to not torture their neighbors all night, and it wasn't even just all night, it was 2 nights. Amanda and I found out after we got up the next morning and said, what the hell was that? We found out it was even worse the night before we got there. We're like, this is, you know what people are going to say. They're going to look at that and go, well, if that's anarchism, yeah, this is why we can't get along. This is why we need government. And no, it's not why we need government, but it is why it's this difficult to explain this to people when people who identify as anarchists make complete fools of themselves. And unfortunately, in the HBO series, there were a number of anarchists kind of making fools of themselves, including people I know and respect and like, causing drama that didn't need to happen and giving an impression that has nothing to do with anarchism, and just mangling the message so badly. And the fact that Kim and Todd like accurately reported on that doesn't make Kim and Todd the ones to blame. The ones who did that, the ones who said those things and did those things that the rest of the world will look at and go, well, those aren't my people. Oh, it's already an uphill battle, and so many anarchists are literally making it way worse. When you remove the belief of statism and a ruling class from society, that doesn't mean you're done. That means you can start making society. If your life is about one negative, not having that thing, and you don't have a positive, what the hell are you? And I think there's a number of people, a lot of them are traumatized people, a lot of them have been traumatized by the state even, who their entire focus is being anti-government. And I'm all in favor of being anti-government, as you've probably noticed. But if that's all you are, I'm talking about the people who are very much into like escapism. I just want to sit around and drug out, hey man, I'm getting super wise. Like, are you really? Do you do anything? Do you know anything? Do you help other people? Is there anything positive you do? And it doesn't have to be what I do. You can garden, you can build houses, you can design stuff, you can write music. There's 8 zillion productive things to do. But if you're literally just dead weight whining about a ruling class, other people are not going to identify with that. Because they're going to see the personality of, oh, you're dead weight. You're kind of a waste of space, even to yourself. Like, why are you existing? What are you doing? What are you accomplishing? Yeah, you complain about that bad thing, as well you should. But then what? Like most people, including most statists, they have things they're interested in. They want to do. They want to create. They want to like be with their family and have relationships and stuff like that. And if all you are is anti that thing, nobody's going to relate to that and think, well, that's awesome. That's what I want to be, is drugged out of my gourd, raving till 4 a.m, till my brain doesn't work and I can't do anything and I don't think anything, but I'm against that bad thing. That's not what people want to be, and it's not what people should want to be. Government is a thing that gets in the way of people being what they ought to be. And it's the biggest thing. And it's the biggest aggressor and the biggest violator of morality and human rights and all that by a long shot. But to have a society of what should be, you can't just base that on a lack of that thing. There has to be positive. You have to be decent human beings. And a lot of self-proclaimed anarchists are basically children. Some of them aren't even decent human beings. They're like obnoxiously narcissistic, inconsiderate jackasses, as happened at the event I was at. But beyond that, there's a bunch who just sort of aren't anything. They're just children, and they complain about this and that and the other thing. And it's like, people watching that aren't going to think, yeah, those are the people I want around me. So there's this mentality of, well, if you don't believe in government, you're my people. No, a lot of them are not my people. The sad, ironic thing is a lot of my people are still statists, and I hope to get them out of being statists because they're decent people and they're good people in every other way. They just have a crappy belief system. Instead of being obnoxious people that I, don't want to spend 5 seconds around, who at least figured out that the concept of authoritarian ruling classes is bogus. But that doesn't make them my people. We have to be decent people in addition to doing away with the state. So, and I'll put it this way. If there was a zombie apocalypse, at least half of the anarchists I know I would avoid like the plague, and at least half of the statists I know I would gravitate towards and say, all right, now we can do stuff. Now that the mechanism of government isn't here for you to cheer for it to rob me and control me, your inner decent person will do fine, and I can get along with you just fine. And it's sad that that's the case. And when the world is watching and going, that's not me, that's not who I want to be with, you're literally just putting an obstacle in front of these ideas getting out there. And don't blame Kim and Todd for reporting on it. Like, that's stuff that happened at an event run by anarchists. Now, I'm not complaining about everybody there. And there were a million awesome people there having awesome discussions. And I know some people are complaining, well, why didn't we focus more on that? Because that isn't the drama and it isn't what keeps people attention. Like, HBO is trying to make shows that people are going to watch and keep their interest. And sadly enough, most people are not going to stay interested in awesome philosophical discussions between cool people being polite, which is the vast majority of what goes on at Anarchapulco. I hardly even go to the talks unless I'm giving one because I hang around talking to people because it's really dang cool. So I'm not saying the event was that, but I'm saying the little drama there was, which gets, the bulk of the attention, whether you're talking about the HBO series or even us. It's like what people were talking about. Like, oh, there's a fist fight over there. And, people at Anarchapulco are like, oh, God, what the hell's going on? Can we get back to our useful discussion now? But that drama is what's going to get seen. And so it's just a giant pile of obstacles in the way of people actually getting the ideas. And I've explained before why the movement has its more than its fair share of freaks and weirdos. And I don't really consider myself mainstream and all that normal. Like, compared to some people, I guess I am. I totally sympathize with the freaks and weirdos and the wounded, the people who've been traumatized, whether by personal stuff or by the state or all that. The people, I've said this a million times, the people who didn't do well given the status quo are going to be the first ones who dare to question the status quo. That's just how things work. The people who are doing just fine within the statist framework aren't going to be the first ones to question it because they're doing fine. Why rock the boat? Unfortunately, that also attracts like freaking psychos, like literally unstable people, narcissists and con men. And so you see some of that in the series. And there are people in the movement who pretended to be anarchists and aren't. And I'm not going to name names and get into the drama of all that. But that's going to happen. And the thing is, that makes it a harder challenge than what government has to say about us. So I hear people talking about whether they want to identify as anarchists. And I totally sympathize because if people look and see, oh, that's anarchism, people go, ew, well, I'm not that. And if you think anarchism is that, I don't want to call myself an anarchist. I have to call myself an anarchist because it literally means somebody who opposes the existence of a ruling class, and that's me. So I'm resigned to being stuck with that label because it's a description of me, even if a whole bunch of the world doesn't really know what it's supposed to mean and associates it with, a bunch of garbage that I want to have nothing to do with. And I have to cringe at a hell of a lot of stuff said and done by people who call themselves anarchists. And when you talk about the community, this is the saddest part. Jeff Berwick touched on it, and Erica Harris touched on it, and Nathan touched on it. The idea of we want a community of these people. And the trouble is, if the one thing you have in common is we don't believe in government, government, can't talk, there's still a whole bunch of other personalities and psychological crap that can get in the way. And it was so sad to watch Nathan go through what he went through, and being stressed out by like what he was trying to do, and then drama that didn't need to happen, and misunderstandings that didn't need to happen. And you know, that's humanity. That just happens in humanity anyway, anywhere. But the chief cat herder trying to get people together and have so much unnecessary crap come up because of personal garbage that has nothing to do with the philosophy. And that kind of destroyed him. And that was so sad to watch, and I have criticisms of literally everybody, including Nathan. There are things he said that, and I know him, and he does the trolling thing, and tries to say things but there's stuff that I groan at and like, oh God, don't say that on camera. Like, people aren't gonna get what you really mean and aren't gonna get the sarcasm. So nobody's like perfectly pure. I exactly agree with that person. And it's understandable people are going to say things that you don't agree with and stuff. It's just, it's so frustrating that an idea this basic and this fundamental to morality has to try to crawl over these piles of mayhem that come from people just being imperfect, damaged people. And in the meantime, there's like really sad dramas, and there's deaths, and there's fights, and there's threats, and there's people being scared and all that crap. And having to watch that while trying to get the message out always makes me just want to run into a cave and like, I'll write books and make videos and send them out. I don't want to have anything to do with the movement. And I mean, there's a lot of people that I do like and respect and I talk to, which is why I do crawl out of my cave on occasion. I'm going to say this in case I haven't offended anybody yet. I said this about the tax honesty movement. By the way, that's an example of something that I don't talk about because a bunch of people would think, well, that's not right. And if you're an anarchist and you think that, because it had nothing to do with anarchism, that's not why that happened at all. I'm not even going to get into it here. But a thing I said about the tax honesty movement is if people ever understand the frauds related to the federal income tax and how it came to be and all that, it will be in spite of the tax honesty movement, not because of it. And I'm sad to say that when, not if, when the ideas of self-ownership and non-aggression in a stateless society do spread to the whole world, and they will, it will be largely in spite of the movement, not because of it. Because there's so many ways in which it's portrayed as something that's going to make most of the world go, ugh. And as the last thing I'll say, last thing to offend people, I've said this before, freaks and weirdos adopting these beliefs and understanding these ideas doesn't save the world. What we need, whether you like it or not, is normal people learning about these ideas and embracing them and realizing, yeah. Because you can go back hundreds of years and there's like a few fringe weirdos who understood these things and talked about these things. They've been talked about for centuries. This isn't something new. What matters is when the mainstream of society starts talking about it. And the thing is, I think there are a lot of people in the movement who like to be fringe. They like to be different. And so deep down inside, they don't actually want the world to understand these things. Well, I do. I want the world to understand these self-evident, obvious things that form the foundation of actual humanity, if we ever get to see that. And I want nothing more than to get to a point where all my videos and all my books and everything I've ever done is completely unneeded and unnecessary and can be thrown in the trash because everybody understands it because it's bleeding obvious, so who cares? Chuck it and move on and then build a society of what's supposed to actually be. And I'm afraid a lot of people in the movement don't actually want that. They like to feel special. And you're not special if what you believe in becomes what everybody believes in. And the thing is, I see people trying to be more fringe and trying to have their beliefs even weirder. And, well, now I'm going to believe that the world is flat because that makes me super edgy. No, it makes you ignorant, and it makes a bunch of people look at you and go, oh, if that's what anarchism is, ugh. And so, a lot of this is just human nature, but human nature is the obstacle to getting this done. And to a large degree, the movement is an obstacle to getting the ideas of self-ownership and non-aggression out there. And I wish that wasn't the case, but that's humanity that we're stuck with. I'm going to keep doing stuff. I'm planning on being back at Anarchapulco in February. I haven't been there for a few years. Trying again. I'm sure stupid drama will happen again. And I'm going to keep doing what I can. I'm going to keep doing my videos. There's like half a dozen different books and videos and stuff we're working on. The Jones Plantation. The movie is in the editing stages. It's supposed to be out this fall. That will be freaking awesome. And so all the people out there cringing at the HBO series, whether you blame the people acting stupid or the people reporting on the people acting stupid and go, it's a hit piece. No, to be a hit piece, you'd have to be lying about stuff. They didn't lie about anything. They just showed what supposed anarchists were doing. I do have to throw in the one person who agreed to the label former anarchist under their name. I'm not going to say their name. That is the perfect message to serve the statist agenda. The idea that, oh, well, I believed in this stuff and then things went wrong and there was trauma and stuff, so now I'm no longer an anarchist. Well, what does that mean? Well, people were people, sad things happened. Now I advocate the existence of an authoritarian ruling class. Then you were never an anarchist and you never understood anything about the principles. You were just an emotion-driven idiot. Now you're an emotion-driven idiot in a different direction. And unfortunately, I think that describes a lot of the movement. Nothing could happen that would suddenly make me go, we need a violent authoritarian ruling class. And now, for some reason, we can magically give to politicians rights that none of us have. Like, if you understand it, you understand that's not an option. I can't not be an anarchist. I didn't choose it among a list of, which of these is going to work better? I accidentally figured out, government can't be legitimate. Like, it's logically and morally impossible, and it's pretty easy to prove that. That's what my book, The Most Dangerous Superstition, does. And so the thing I cringed most at in the last episode of the HBO thing was implied and or stated things of, things went really badly with people like this. Therefore, like that somehow makes the ideology not work. No, it makes those people not work. And I'm going to end by pointing out anarchism isn't even an ideology. It's literally removing one really stupid idea from your belief system, and that's all. The stupid, insane, destructive idea that rituals can give somebody the right to violently dominate the rest of us. No, they can't. And that's all anarchism is. It's a lack of believing that stupid lie. A lack of believing in that insane superstition. And that's all. The rest of what you believe in and what you're about and what you want to do is on you. Anarchism isn't a complete philosophy. I barely even call it a philosophy because it's literally just recognizing one lie and outgrowing that lie. And that's all. Then it's time for humanity to move on and be humanity. And unfortunately, a lot of people in the movement kind of suck at that part. And they show to the world a very bad example of here's what anarchism is. No, that's just what stupid people drama is. And it can be really sad and it can be traumatic and it can be infuriating and all that stuff. And that's just people drama. And to put a message out there that's going to confuse the public even more by making them think those people equal anarchism, just at the very least, can you just not get in the way of spreading the ideas that actually matter? Can you not make it worse than it was to begin with by claiming to be an anarchist and then broadcasting your own trauma and screw-ups and stuff to the world as if that's anarchism? Like, you can talk about that stuff and whatever. Don't pretend that that's anarchism. It isn't. It's just you. It's your stuff. So, anyway, on a positive note, yes, the belief is... the the understanding of that superstition is absolutely going to win out in the end. The message will outlive all of the messengers, including me, and the whole world is going to understand how insane the notion of authority was sooner or later. I'd like it to happen a lot sooner because people are still suffering and horrible things are happening as a result of it. We're still going to get there. I'm not saying, oh, we're doomed, I give up. I'm saying if you call yourself an anarchist, at least break even, at least do as much good as you do harm to the impression the world has of anarchism. If nothing else, shut up and hide in the distance, but by all means, go forward and actually understand and explain and spread the ideas instead of giving the impression that this sad drama is what anarchism is about, because it's not. And I would hope that anarchists would understand that, but apparently a bunch of them still don't.